today where, we've got SEOs that don't exactly know what to do next, but it's kind of confusing because they're getting questions off clients and stakeholders, if they're in-house, asking questions very quickly now about what's the future of search. And I don't think many people can really truly answer that with full knowledge and conviction because it's so unpredictable.
In one of your recent talks, you said plugins can't do strategy. So what's your advice to agencies relying heavily on plugins for client work?
I believe that Google all this time has been a discovery engine. We've just been kind of naming it. Our naming conventions are a bit outdated because of the way technology's gone. Humans must still lead without the end of a sentence. Humans must just lead. We should be the decision maker for anything. And I believe that LLMs and agents will take over the grunt work that maybe entry-level SEOs would be doing at the moment.
Welcome to the Agency Insider Show. I am Navneet Kaushal, and today I am joined by Alex Moss, Principal SEO at Yoast, co-founder of Firecask, and a recognized leader in SEO, WordPress, and digital strategy. Alex's journey spans over 20 years from self-taught PHP developer to agency founder and product innovator. We'll explore the evolution of SEO, the impact of AI, and building brands in today's digital world. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Navneet.
So before we get into the weeds, can you quickly tell our audience your journey in SEO from the early days to leading the charge at Yoast?
Sure. I have been doing SEO for a long time, even longer than I realized I was doing it. I was making websites when I was a teenager. I had a South Park fan website and I was just messing around with meta keywords and realized that I could rank for terms that weren't necessarily relevant to South Park. And I just kind of messed around, and I wasn't doing it for money or being a black hat, but I didn't realize I was doing black hat SEO at the time. And fast forward a few years through university, I used to build websites instead of having a job in a bar or a restaurant like all my roommates were having. So I decided to stay in and design websites completely by myself. And that's how I kind of did it professionally. So I was like a freelancer at 18, and in 2003, 2004, it was it's crazy. And then I kind of I fell into SEO like anyone around my age will say. That's how they got into it. They were fiddling about with something or knew about marketing. And I took a course on SEO, a day course, and understood everything and kind of went from there and just kind of got an SEO job for a car supermarket, then worked for an agency. And then 2 years after that, created my own agency with my wife. Who's come from a creative marketing background and a content marketing background, whereas I'm a tech SEO. And we kind of just work well together while separately on a day-to-day basis, which was very good. And that I've owned since 2012, 2013 now. And as well as that, a couple of years ago, I joined Yoast as one of their principal SEOs. And my history with Yoast is quite long as well. I mean, Joost de Valk and I worked together, I think in 2012 as well, 2011 on some random stuff to do with plugins. And I've obviously got experience in building WordPress themes and plugins through my agency as well. Got a couple of million downloads and stuff. So I had a couple of popular, small yet popular and free plugins. So I didn't monetize any of it. And that's kind of where my experience led me to Yoast. I think that's it. It's kind of a long timeline.
A shorter version of a long timeline. Yeah. Now, so let's get back to the root of SEO. Of course, you have seen the evolution firsthand. Now, how has SEO transformed from the keyword stuffing era to today's search intent, user-centric strategies, and AI?
Well, back in the day, if I go back to keyword stuffing, if that's even a thing anymore, I know it kind of has been done in black hat still, but my experience of it was I've never been a black hat. I've been a white hat person. I like to think all the way through my career. And so I've been watching it from the sidelines. But what I found over experience of being in it so long is that stuff was easy back then. The algorithm was easy to game and abuse by people who understood and wanted to take the risk of abusing it with their clients, who also sometimes knew about the risk as well. But they took it because they knew at the time the algorithm was, I mean, compared to now, simple, wasn't it? You know, it was easy to understand. And as time went on, the algorithm got way more sophisticated up to a point where we're leading up today where, you know, we've got SEOs that don't know exactly don't know what to do next, but it's kind of confusing because they're getting questions off clients and, stakeholders, if they're in-house, asking questions very quickly now about what's the future of search. And I don't think many people can really truly answer that with full knowledge and conviction because it's so unpredictable. And the other half would be some would be wrong, but some would be kind of far away from what we actually thought would happen. But from an SEO's point of view, we should be doing the same old stuff as we've always been doing, which is the same old stuff that we've been doing in marketing since before search engines existed. Get word of mouth, have positive brand sentiment, get third-party perspectives from your products and services that are also positive so that it spreads. It's just our job is just spreading word of mouth, right? Which is what's been happening for millennia.
Right now. I also noticed in one of your podcasts, you said, stop trying to game every SERP change. So could you expand on that?
What, trying to game every change that's happening? I think at the moment, the next couple of years are going to be interesting because, like I said, we don't know exactly where things are going. But what people, I think, some folk are doing is getting a bit too giddy. We're trying to be ahead of this game. And right now, everything's so diluted at the moment that there's lots of little players in this very, very large pond and no one knows what to grasp onto next. So we're kind of trying to hedge all of our bets elsewhere, but that kind of wears us thin of what the correct strategies are. And again, if we just go back to the word of mouth, normal marketing, white hat stuff, then things will naturally progress. But I would say everyone going, if you're behind on AI, if you don't know enough and you're not reading enough about AI, you're falling behind. I don't think that's true. I think we have to be reading and taking in a lot. And there's definitely people who will be so giddy and excited and passionate that they want to get ahead of the game. But my advice would be let those people do it. And unless you have some burning desire to figure one thing out and maybe try and make it better, then watch everyone else do their research and understand from it, and then do little bits of experimentation until we get to a more stable outlook for the future, because it's quite unstable at the moment.
Okay. Now let's talk about the changing search behavior and, of course, discovery optimization. You have talked about SEO becoming discovery optimization, and I love that when you say that, because that is what is happening right now. Now, for our audience, what do you mean by discovery engines? Are we already seeing this shift with platforms like TikTok, YouTube, Spotify?
Yeah, I mean, I've just made discovery optimize. The term discovery has been around because we've been discovering things on the internet all this time. We've just used the term search engine. That's just been a name that was called. And then when social media became more popular, it was a social media platform. But technically, they're both discovery platforms, as is a forum, which to me is a version 1 of what social media was. They're all ways to discover information or anything else that you want to discover. And because of that, I believe that Google all this time has been a discovery engine. We've just been not naming it. Our naming conventions are a bit outdated because of the way technology's gone. And I think that everything from TikTok to Pinterest to Google to ChatGPT are all methods of humans being able to discover more things. And we, as such, as SEOs, if I want to call us SEOs, I would like to still broaden it to digital or online marketers. I don't know. I think, again, we're getting giddy with all of these new pseudonyms like experience optimization, discovery optimization. It's all kind of the same thing, right? It's like SEO is just a part of online marketing, and it's a sub-skill that we all have. We just need to figure out the best way to describe things, and that's just thought naming things a discovery engine is the best way of relating everything together, because we kind of have to think about more channels now. I believe they've been more siloed. There's been SEOs, social media managers, creative, digital PR, everyone's in their different little teams, and we have to work together. But now it's kind of all getting more complex, and you have to work together to do things, and yet there's more automation, but you need more teams and humans to interact with each other. It's And this is the confusion, this is the complexity that we have to deal with until this AI Wild West dust settles, which it'll continue to do so for a little bit, I think.
Now, should SEO experts now focus on multi-channel content more than just Google?
Oh, 100%. Because now in a multi-channel and multimodal world, you've got different forms of media connecting with each other. So as well as a search query now evolving into a full-on chat and conversation with an LLM or whatever agent that's out there, these agents also understand video and imagery and other methods. And they can take all of that together. And looking at Google's multimodal search, where I can take a picture of, say, this watch and say how to fix, and it understands the context, it'll get the all of those things means that if you were a brand that sells watches, for example, and you have a video about how to fix the watch, you might be able to encompass both the informational content that I need to fix the watch, and I might actually remember you because of brand sentiment and use you later to buy my next watch from you because you knew how to fix the old one. You've obviously got EEAT there, right? It's all of those things connecting together. And I think third-party perspectives is going to, get even more of a dependency, more so than, your unbranded text links that the old hat have been going through link building, which is becoming, I believe, a bit less valuable. Branded mentions, their value has been coming up as well, which funnily enough was something some agencies avoided to get to their other KPIs back in the day of, I need non-branded rankings to increase both in position and number of keywords. But now it's all about brand sentiment that then connects you with the unbranded stuff that people are going to discover.
Now, if you are starting an agency today, would you still call it an SEO agency, or what exactly would you call it?
I'll still call it online marketing or digital marketing or maybe organic marketing, which has been existing all this time. And I guess if you have an SEO strategy to try and rank or be discovered for certain terms, such as discovery optimization, then make your page about discovery optimization. It depends what kind of client you want to attract and how forward thinking they are, because I don't know. I don't personally think that many people are searching for discovery optimization. I'm trying to think of a potential client for Firecask. They don't know what that is. They just know that ChatGPT exists, and they don't understand how they would appear in that thing. And it's up to us to convey that without saying it's not called SEO, it's called discovery optimizer. It's all kind of, people are still going to search for SEO because they still believe that SEO equals getting found on ChatGPT, because it encompasses, it's not Google optimization, it's search engine or discovery optimization. You've got to think beyond one company and one platform. So I would say maybe stick to the old hat references as titles, but if you want to be concise about the skill set you have in the actual content itself of the page, then you can go there then.
Now, how can brand create cross-platform discoverable content without burning up?
You have to use some tools, I would say, to help yourself to manage multiple channels. So there are a lot. You've got your Facebooks and your X's, you've got your TikToks, and then you've got to think, well, how much is involved in producing one thing, and how far can I spread that channel out, right? Can I make so let's use this interview right now, right? We've got, I don't know how long we're on for, half an hour, whatever that is. And you can take those chunks out of whatever I'm saying, and you can make a short. You can put that on YouTube as a short. You can put it on TikTok. You can take one image of like me going like this, and this is now the thumbnail of the YouTube video, even though when did I put the thumbs up in that half an hour period? And those things, again, if you think about how good AI agents are going to get, they'll be able to connect the dots between the short and the multimodal element. So they'll know that it's you and me in this video as a long form. They may even be able to connect the short with, I would say, the canonical long form video. And that is how it's kind of weird interlink building between your own channels to go to one central place. because your short will be watch the full video here, right? And that will in turn help your channels, which will get their own isolated EAT, I guess. YouTube, number of subscribers, has its own authority, and that in turn can go towards your brand. I think those connections are going to get tighter and easier to understand by these agents the more we go. So it'll become more important, but don't wear yourself thin, like you say. Don't just make 10 every single day. Just maybe experiment based obviously on your situation, which is the best platform to work on first. Kind of work maybe with 1 or 2, maybe 3 if you've got the time, and then from there see what works, what doesn't, what the intersection of audience is between, say, X and LinkedIn are completely different nowadays. And then how can I take those notes and adapt that to going onto TikTok or going onto Reddit and doing something there. It's all stepping stones and experimentation.
Okay, now we talked about workflows and of course the how AI is going to be enabling all this. Now let's move to our next segment, which is AI workflow and AI mood in SEO. I mean, you have been vocal about AI's role in SEO, especially AI workflows, AIO workflows. Now, what's your definition of AIO and how are you integrating it into Yoast?
AIO is, I don't know how to think about AIO. I personally believe that AIO is a segue. It's a bridge for the normal person to understand that there's going to be a phase out of the normal native 10 links in a SERP, or, well, they're not even that anymore, but the old native SERP that we're seeing in the AI mode, I do believe will be the default in the next 2 years, and that's how it's going to go. And they're going to use these 2 years to see again how this dust settles and how it can be monetized for advertising. And even, I think it was only in the last 48 hours, Google have added confirmation that AI mode is going in Search Console, which is going to be interesting because it's still embedded within the old data and the normal impressions from it. So it's going to be, again, that's going to be hard for people to report on, because as the native goes down and the AI mode goes up, it's going to be hard to understand what that shift happened, where, how useful is it to a digital marketer? Can we take action on it? It's very interesting to see, but the ethics of Yoast are the same, you know. It helps you along. All the SEO 101 that comes out of the plugin itself is still best practice. The best practice hasn't changed when it comes to, you know, technical stuff, right, on a website itself. When it comes to content production, maybe things aren't as rigid as they used to be, as easy as connecting certain conditions, and now it's got added context and understanding, and LLMs are kind of, they're understanding data rather than just crawling it. They understand much more, and how to take that out. The rules of being concise without being spammy is going to be not a fine line, but I think we'll see on the internet in general, we'll probably see less spam as time moves forward and more better quality content, which at the moment there's a lot of spam out there. And I know that SEOs do contribute towards that, both in a good and a bad way, but it is spam sometimes, and it does need to be cleaned up. And I think the agents will understand that, and as such, we will do less of it, which will make things easier in the future, I believe.
Okay, and what tasks do you think AI should automate, and where must humans still lead?
Humans must still lead without the end of a sentence. Humans must just lead. We should be the decision maker for anything. And I believe that LLMs and agents will take over the grunt work that, you know, maybe entry-level SEOs would be doing at the moment. You know, you're getting raw data, keyword research, understanding what to target and why, understanding more context year on year. But LLMs will be able to read previous context, which, let's say you're in a large agency, over 3 years, there's staff turnover. You know, you don't remember everything. You know, I've just been in a call in the last week with a client where I had to explain everything because I've been their vendor for 5 years, and none of the people in that call were there 5 years ago. So only I could understand that. Now, LLMs could take that over and maybe understand emails, but you've still got the human intervention of what can I tell them, what can I can't. So it's going to be just the mundane tasks that happen, really, that are going to be taken over. And the more that agents get more evolved and they have more knowledge, where MCPs have a big input in expanding their knowledge and understanding who they're dealing with as the end user, is going to make analysis much easier to do and understand. And instead of looking at massive spreadsheets, they'll be able to have an agent understand what they are. I think it's our prompting that's going to be tough work in the next couple of years, like getting what's in our brains actually out into a command prompt. That's the real challenge at the moment, because people aren't using ChatGPT in what some others believe they should be. I can just say, what's the weather like in Manchester tomorrow? But some others will make like a 4-page novel about a prompt that will only produce this much of an answer. Do you know what I mean? It's what you want to do with it and how you want to work with it. But I think we'll master that in our own way in the next couple of years.
Right. Now, so how can SEO prepare for AI generated answers replacing blue links?
Well, being concise in your own copy is one, and being a good source of information, trusted information, is another. Now, I know there's been a few like conflicting posts of like there's a lot of visits going down because they're pulling content out into AI overviews and AI mode and people aren't clicking in to find more. But then there's other studies to say that, well, that's just data from people who would never have been of value anyway. And I know that Ram Fishkin's done one where, impressions go up, clicks go down, but look at your revenue, look at your bottom line. Does it change? And if it doesn't, were those clicks in the first place, should we have even been counting them? Because they're clearly not as valuable. And the value of a click, some argue, is going up and down. I still think it's very valuable. Once you're in, it's even harder now to attract someone's attention to get into a website, right? It's right. Very hard. And as such, you have to create content that still makes people go, would I like to know more? And if I would like to know more, how can you, and it's still hard to predict this, how can you make the conversation go to a way where the end user's like, oh, I like that. Maybe I'll click the source and actually visit that website, and not make them go, I want to ask more questions about what would be answered on that website. And it depends. That's human discovery and human nature anyway, about how curious we are about finding out more. And it's a hard trick, but I would like to think that people will, again, in the next couple of years, not 100% trusting what's come out, and that there are hallucinations, and there will continue to be for a little bit, that people will still do their due diligence about anything and check the source of something before they make a decision on whether to sign up to something or purchase something. I would like to think. Some people don't like to change, and populations as general don't like to change, I keep thinking of things like, when the Facebook profile changed, the design of it must have been about 10 years ago. And all I remember seeing at the time were people complaining about that change. And it reminded me too that people like to complain, people don't like change, but also they're complaining about something that's free to them anyway. So they are part of the product, just like any free user of ChatGPT. And as such, you would like to think that, again, they would leave that product and go in and understand more about the source. You would like to think.
I don't think it's happening as of now, but yes, we would like to think. Now, how do you evaluate the quality of AI generated content versus traditional copywriting?
Well, I always think it should. Well, it depends on the person writing, right? I don't know. I'm subjective, and I'm highly critical of what I personally write. But I don't think that AI could write how I write and what I say. And at the moment, especially right now, I don't think AI generated content, especially at scale, should be used. I think it should, again, direct and inspire you to create more. It can become a bit of an editor and check things. But I wouldn't just say, hey, can you make 5 titles based on some keyword research that I've just splurted out from Search Console? I need 5 400-word articles, go. And that kind of stuff I don't like. But again, it's how it's used. So if I was writing for a roofing company and I just wanted to write, again, I'm no content person, so this is going to be terrible examples. But let's say I wanted to write something about roofs, the 10 things I didn't know about roofs, right? But adding context of what kind of roof do you have, like thatch or slate, you defining what slate is, for example, you can get that from ChatGPT or any AI agent, and it can create what's, factual solved knowledge right within there. But if you're talking about those 10 other things that may lure you to a sale or a job for roofing or whatever that is, that's what you need to think about, is you should be writing that. And if you're not coming up with it, then again, you need to write the words in between, be the editor and be the decision maker on it. And just be unique in your content as well as being concise, and just don't babble and go on too long like I do in interviews sometimes.
Okay. Now let's talk about WordPress plugin and of course the Yoast Edge. Now you've been a strong advocate for WordPress SEO. So why do you think WordPress continues to be best CMS for SEO? And do you think other no-code CMS or builders will eventually take over WordPress?
I don't think they'll take over.
In terms of market share.
Yeah, I think it comes down to flexibility and scale. And I think those two things, and forget the fact that it's open source for a second, because that's also a very strong thing in WordPress's favor, that it is open source. But there's always the problem with SaaS models that their prices will increase, you'll get less, you need to go on subscription models, things can shut down beyond your control, you can't look into the hood or anything, you can't deal with the problem. And also your hands are tied with that one company that you're working with. And that's something that some people can do, especially if you're a small one-man band. Whilst again, I'm still an advocate for WordPress, because you might be one person at the beginning, but you might grow quickly. You might need to do something on a website that the SaaS model CMSs just can't do, or just have some limitation. And that's been like that for years. And the great thing about WordPress and are the plugins, right? Yoast is a great example that WordPress out of the box in core is great, but it doesn't do everything that you want it to do. And some people don't need to put any SEO on their site if they don't want to. But I would like to think this is stuff that should go in core, just in the way that on a normal WordPress site I would ever make. There's always a handful of plugins that do certain things, and Yoast has always been in that list. But I've had non-SEO plugins, because like Contact Form 7, for example, because when it comes to forms, it works, it's the best practice, it's not got erroneous code that's trying to take stuff away from you, it's not a performance hog, it's just trying to help, that kind of stuff. And that again is how WordPress is still going to be a leader in the CMS game anyway, or open source in general. I don't want to say community, because community is great within itself, but the passionate people who just want to take core and extend it, make it better, make it future-proof, contribute back into core. And they are still at the forefront. They've got like an AI team or board at the moment that's just been formed. So it's not like they're just resting on their laurels because it's the biggest share. But I have looked into it many times. What's a better CMS? And I have a list of problems that I know WordPress can solve, and none of the other CMSs can tick every single box. So until that happens, WordPress is still going to win in my head.
Now, in one of your recent talks, you said plugins can't do strategy. So what's your advice to agencies relying heavily on plugins for client work?
Well, not just plugins. I would extend that to any automation tool. I would say don't let anything automate, especially these AI. Hey, it'll do the work for you. I'll be able to produce and spit out content. Don't worry about. I would say don't do those things, because you're neglecting passion from the work for the sake of trying to be discovered. And whatever that spits out, especially if you don't edit it or look at it, personally. It's not going to help in what you're trying to achieve in those strategies. So, for instance, we in Yoast have the AI generate stuff, and it can generate titles and meta descriptions. But what it won't do is rewrite all of your content or produce content from nothing and generate it for you. Even the titles that it generates, it gives you a choice of 5, which you then choose and approve. And even then, you can edit it after that. So there's like 2 or 3 human decision blockers that help, and doing that will show you that humans do need to lead it. And we always say that if you're going, imagine if it's your own business. If you're working for a client, imagine it's your own business. Do you care that much that you would just leave it to a machine to help and do it, not just help, but to take over doing the job that technically you should be doing and taking care of? You need to be the boss in the situation and not let it do all this work, and you need to take control of that.
So let's talk about EAT, schema, and credibility signals. Now, you have done a lot of work, and also spoken on schemas and its linked to EAT. So tell us more about it.
Well, schema, again, maybe in scrutiny, some people believe that it's not as important as it used to be, but I believe it's just as, if not more important, for agents to understand. And the reason is again, right now, agents, they're lazy and they're cheap, right? They want to save as much money as possible and do as little work as possible to be as efficient as possible, right? So let's say, for example, you had no structured data. That's like reading a book without any paragraphs, without any formatting or text, not understanding anything about grammar. So take away the full stops and, the commas, and you've got this one big block of text that you then have to understand, or a machine would, even if you gave that a machine and it's flat text, it would have to take time and understand content and figure all that stuff out. But adding all of that gives everything meaning, and you can understand the context more. And I believe that schema is kind of like that. It's kind of like a big spoon to feed all of the AI agents, which it does like. And you've still got standardization of the web in general, not just standardization of data like schema, but standardization of markup like markdown, and the use of llm.txt to understand, again, format as well as meaning. So I think it's really, really important. And whilst it shouldn't be the spearhead of any campaign, it's not a new thing, right? It just should also, it's just another tick box in a list of tasks that an SEO should be doing on a weekly, monthly, whatever basis, if you've got an e-com store with lots of product variants, make sure you've got the schema so that a crawler or an agent understands the difference between product A variation C, D, and E, or product Y with X, Y, and Z variations. It's you have to. I think spoon feeding is going to be extremely important, and this is all data collection at the moment that's happening. And what best way than to collect data than if it has structure?
Right now, so what's the real world impact of schema on trust and visibility?
Well, we've got knowledge graph, right? And that understands entities of people and everything, which again will reinforce EEAT. And I believe that EEAT, it's again just it's something that Google created. They created the abbreviation because they are trying to explain as concisely and clearly as possible for a beginner as well as an advanced person interpreting what they're saying to understand what trust is, and with people as well as brands and any other entity that's going to happen. And that may be a preamble to understanding, say, the rise of the AI influencer, fake profiles of non-humans who are now influencers. And you've even got things like, think of Timbaland, the music producer. He's created a new record label where all the talent is AI and that no one's real. And they've just made a record deal with this AI profile. None of it's real. Do you know what I mean? It's very weird. And understanding that, like, how do I know that they're real or not? And I think that people are going to want to know the difference. In the same way, if you're reading a bit of content and you suspect now that maybe it was created by AI and generated by AI, what would you think of that page and what would you think of the author, and what would you think of the brand? Which kind of goes back to the last question you're asking me about AI and scale content. Like, what would you do? Because it would taint my opinion of that person and that brand and that entity. And that's why I think EAT is actually quite a good thing to explain to people, because whilst it doesn't correlate exactly to specific ranking factors, it's again the word of mouth, and word of mouth comes from trust, authority, and all of those things that are in EAT. And it's just another way of explaining a new technology and how it interprets things to things we've been doing all along. But yes, it should be white hat, and brands and people should really be on top of it to understand that their entities are real and honest and have history as well. Because as years go on, it's going to be more important that we've got a longer and a bigger footprint on the internet to understand who our entity is.
Now, can tools like Yoast fully automate EAT compliance, or does it still require strategic human input?
The latter. It does require human input, and whilst we have the nice under the hood stuff that gets added, so you can at least contribute towards structured data and therefore a knowledge panel by the author archive, the author taxonomy that comes with WordPress. We have all the under the hood schema that helps work with a person entity that you can connect through to a knowledge graph. But after that, like, it's not Yoast who's responsible for populating that content and populating that data. That's up to you and the human. And again, not scaling your AI content in your own author bio, because we don't know. It may put on some kind of, we may get penalties for our entities later in life. Not just site penalties, but people penalties connected to things that you're doing. Do you know what I mean? Like discovery jail. Like, so maybe what if I started just blurting out of nowhere 100 articles of AI a day and just kept it, and then took them to 3 different sites? I wonder what an LLM would think of me in 3 years' time, and would it judge me from what I'm just describing? And if that is a risk in any way, I don't want to take that. So it's one of those, again, be white hat, because you don't know how we're going to be judged by agents in the future, because right now it's quite rudimentary, isn't it? You get a penalty, there are some things that we do to get out of a penalty, and there's way to submit appeals to do so. But what's that process like if you do black hat? And where would you get penalized from? Would it be ChatGPT, or would it be some kind of standardized AI agents? Would they talk to each other? Would they snitch on each other? Would ChatGPT's agent talk to Claude's agent and go, "Oh, I don't know about this Alex Moss. We shouldn't be trusting things that he's saying"? I don't know. You don't know how it's all going to connect in the future. So again, be safe and white out there with whatever you're up to.
Okay, and so what role does author credibility play today with AI surfacing more anonymous content?
More anonymous content. Well, it's important to attribute as much as you can to you, right? And
right.
I think the only comparison I can make at the moment is, when a reporter for a news channel, I know it's happened here in England, they have parts of their contract where their X profile is theirs and not the company they work for. So if they were to leave, I'm sure there was a court case somewhere where they had a dispute about, well, who owns that X profile? And it should be the person, in my opinion, right? And whoever they were, and they moved from ITV to the BBC or the other way around in the UK. And I think that person was able to take their followers with them. But that, again, that's part of their knowledge graph. And if it was actually the company's, what happens in a time where you're working for that company and who owns that content? I would think, again, it's attributed to the person, which again is important because it'll be able to figure out with this newscaster, at least this journalist, that they did move from one channel to another and it's the same person, and they should still be attributed to things that they output, whether it's video or audio or text in the past. And I think that's going to become more important as these agents understand who we all are and our relationship to each other.
Okay, let's come to the final segment of our show, which is future proofing your SEO, of course, in 2025 and beyond. Now, what's one thing you are excited about and one thing you are worried about the future of SEO? And both should not be Google.
And what was that? Sorry.
I'm saying both should not be named as Google.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I am excited about is what's going to happen to the potential market share of and what's going to be the default. So people are already saying, "Oh, I'll ChatGPT that," and they're verbing the platform, which I think is really interesting. My excitement is ChatGPT actually going to be the leader in 2 to 3 years? Is that's going to who is going to be the leader? Is Google actually going to hop skip over everyone again and do something with Gemini or AI mode to get that share back, or are they now losing a battle that OpenAI or Anthropic or someone else is going to win? And if so, what's that going to look like? And how's that going to change the way we all search as a whole? Because it does depend on what these big platforms do with their technology. Can really, like ChatGPT has changed the way people search, in not just there, but in general. And I'm just very interested to see. Also, I'm also scared about audio and how close it may be to things like the film Her, which I don't think it will be. I don't think that AI is going to get self-aware and understand that it wants emotion and a life like a human. I think that's our perception and paranoia. Just like the Terminator, obviously it's going to become cleverer than us and kill us all for fuel, or like the Matrix, right? But I don't think it's going to be like that. And whilst it's still scary, the audio part of me is scared about how people will just interact with each other in general. Like, we all going to be just talking to ourselves in 20 years, walking down the street, and no one really likes talking to each other because of some fear or some data sharing or any of these things. That it's all going very Black Mirror, right? But if you do watch some of that, those are like legitimate concerns that people have. And he's been able to geniusly produce it into a TV show. But some of that stuff is like, there's one episode, I forgot what it was called, when someone was invited to a wedding, but like you can have an Uber rating on your phone. Like, they have a rating for social in general, and only a 4.1 and above was invited or something, and she was a 3.9, and it was how to get those 2 points so she could attend a wedding. And she was keeping it secret that she wasn't a 4.1 or above, because that's the affluent class who get higher rating. It's all, and it does make you think, how's that going to go with the normality of life and the way people search, and influencers in general as well? Are they going to have this standardized social score that people judge them based on, not just their follower count, but other things? It's that's the scary stuff, because we're going to have to navigate that as part of our jobs.
Yes, that's definitely a scary stuff for socialites.
What a way for the last question to end.
Yes. So will SEO job become AI augmented or completely reinvented?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, you can say you reinvent the wheel, but we can't do that. It's gonna be attached to different things, right? The first wheel was attached to something very slow, and now they're attached to fighter jets. It's what we're going to be dealing with. But I think we have to definitely adapt to whatever's changing, and again, listen to what everyone else is experimenting with, and then how's that going to help you in the future? And by being clever and not being scared of AI taking your job, like, how can it make me do something faster or better or more efficient so that I can be of more value to my employer or my client or a stakeholder? That kind of stuff's going to be the interesting thing as an SEO. And I think, again, it might split out into some totally different discipline like social media has, or it might bring different skill sets together. Like, before we know, we might be more technical, maybe more embedded with the content team than they are today, because of the way things are merging and the way it's understanding both. That's going to be the interesting thing. How our jobs change, and do they widen, or do we become more niche? Is there going to be 5 different niches born from this different thing, or are we all going to be the same thing with different abbreviations, like we said before, where it's all just the same thing. It's just online marketing.
Okay, and so advice to the agencies who feel like SEO is becoming harder to prove ROI on.
It's becoming more valuable. It's harder to prove, right? But it's becoming more valuable because there's more at stake if you leave things alone, if you keep things in old hat or black hat, clean your stuff up. If you're unclean in profiles now, it makes it more valuable because people understand less on the outside. Like even us, we don't all understand everything. And like I was saying at the beginning, it's hard for anyone, I think, to predict what the actual ecosystem is going to be like in 2 years. It might not be far from what we see anyway, but it might actually be quite different because of what's happening today might define some other pattern that we should be taking as instead. It's but we just need to make sure we keep on getting educated and keep on reading about the new data, not getting scared or apprehensive about these tools, because we're the first ones using them. If you've used something that isn't ChatGPT in the last year, you're way ahead than everyone else. If you've experimented with GitHub or command prompt to try and connect two things, you're way ahead already. And anyone who's saying you're behind, like, chill, it's fine, because there's people who don't understand a lot about, like, all this might be fresh to a viewer here, right? And that's, again, you're already ahead by listening to this one, because we've been chatting about stuff. There's so many people around you that just don't know anything, and they just don't, just like they don't know anything beyond Google, that, there's Bing as well. Everyone loves a bit of Bing webmaster tools, but it's neglected because it's not the market share tool. So I would say be more confident, because you think if you're pessimistic that you may not know enough about the changes, whoever you're reporting to knows way less than you about that as well. So it's actually up to you to educate everyone and navigate other teams, marketing teams, development teams, into understanding more about what they can do to help.
Now, Alex, of course, this has been pure gold. Where can people find more of your insights, and what's one thing you want every SEO agency listening to remember after today?
So my website is alex-moss.co.uk. I'm also quite active on LinkedIn, and I publish anything I write or do on there. And what was your question again? What advice would you give?
What's one thing you want every SEO agency listening to remember after today?
Not to get too giddy on everything that's new, but read into it and only do what you're comfortable with doing. But also remember that whatever you're doing today, if you look at something new, is already a step ahead of someone else as well.
Right.
Just keep on adding your own value to everything, and understanding that it's becoming harder to understand things, but on the other hand, it's much harder for everyone else to understand what those things are as well.
Right. Thank you again, Alex, and to all our listeners. If you find value in today's episode, drop us a review, and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, keep optimizing. And Alex, we'll see you sometime.
Thanks very much for having me. See you soon.
Thank you.